Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to talk to you about custom GPTs in ChatGPT, right? And so the previous video to this, I went into like a high-level overview that was more philosophical. Here we're going to be a little bit more hands-on. So a custom GPT, basically that is your own AI, as it were. And so what you can do with a custom GPT is you can give it instructions. The instructions tells the GPT what to do, how to behave, how to act, and what to think and how to think. You don't have to be that specific, and you don't have to lean into those things that I mentioned. You don't have to do that, but it is recommended. So it's all about constraints, rules, focus, topic. So, just like in life, you do things best when you have a guidebook, a playbook. You do things best when you have rules and a code that you live by, that you operate by. And it works well with an artificial construct that is modeled off of the way humans operate. Keep in mind, there's no brain here. You know, it's a series of rules, but it's very broad by default. So in order to get it to work well for you, you have to narrow it and have it focus in on what it's supposed to do. And the better of a job you do here, the better your results will be. So that's your first group of things that you have to nail down, is you have to nail down your instructions. Now, a GPT in 2025 in OpenAI's ChatGPT, it can actually work just fine with this alone, with just this alone. In the past, you were advised to have knowledge files, example files, but you can actually dispense with that and take an entirely different approach that's based on well-crafted instructions. However, in many cases, you have a certain way you want the GPT to do things that cannot be adequately described by instructions. Keep in mind that when you set up instructions, you only have 8,000 characters. That limits how many words you can put into this instructions. So you cannot be comprehensive, you cannot be encyclopedic, you cannot put the entire instruction manual for how you want to do things in these instructions. So these have to be good enough that the GPT can work well in general, but you reinforce that with what's called the knowledge. So you have the knowledge. Now, the knowledge is going to consist of books, actual books. It can have articles. It can have documents. And it can have software code. It can have scripts. It can have any number of things, that would describe the topic area very well, right? So your topic area the main topic of your GPT, and the main focus needs to be able to tap into the knowledge that helps it do or follow the instructions and execute the instructions in the way that you would like. So without this knowledge, it's going to have a little bit more free rein to use the knowledge that it deems best. And perhaps you have specific source material that you know is more reliable, that is going to be much more aligned with your philosophy, with your way of doing things. So that's what the knowledge does for you. And as I explained in the previous video, there are some limitations here. And you would have to actually watch the previous video to understand those limitations. So what I want to then move in on is what this looks like. So what this looks like is basically in OpenAI's Chat GPT, you have a GPT creator, right? So there's your create mode, and you can start off doing a chat, right? You can start off doing a chat that would help it build the GPT in a pretty effective way. I don't use this approach. I don't do chats with the GPT to create the GPT. I go straight to configure. And with configure, you can give it a name. So we could call this academic, or let's make it more interesting. Millionaire business planner, right? Ladder chasers, bag chasers, whatever you want to call yourself. So millionaire business planner. And then you're going to type up the instructions, create immaculate business plans based on proven strategies that moves an individual from low net worth to high net worth. But you just can't have a one-line instruction like this. You got to have an entire paragraph or paragraphs. And so crafting this in detail is going to take some time. And then once you have that, then you just click on upload files, and it's going to bring up a pop-up box, and you can select whatever files you want. In most cases, I would uncheck image generation. You really don't need that. And even if you're doing software development, you don't want code interpreter and data analysis. And the reason being is that, and this part can change, but code interpreter is really for Python code. And so if you're not doing Python coding, a code interpreter may generally be ineffective for you. There's a checkbox that's not shown that will be shown once you click create up here. Once you actually create the GPT, there's a checkbox down here that you can uncheck that says use the knowledge and the interactions with this GPT to train OpenAI's models. I usually uncheck that because I don't want additional slowdowns in my GPT. These actions, you will not need those unless you're going to go above and beyond setting up scripts, setting up additional infrastructure that this GPT can tap into in order to execute. So basically you create an agent that can actually take an entire program, computer program, compile it, test it, run it, validate it, QA check it, all of that kind of stuff, and do it the same way you would if you were doing it right on your computer. Now, the reason why I don't do all of that is I'm going to do all that myself. All right? And so that's how you get started with creating the GPT. But the knowledge files, those are very important. So what I want to walk you through is what knowledge kind of looked like for me in the beginning. So let's say that I wanted to take some of this information and I wanted it part of the knowledge. You can do that in a variety of ways. Well, what I was leaning on was, let's say, download the PDF, right? So I could take that and I can get a PDF right off of Microsoft's website. This generated 4,217 pages. 4,217 pages of knowledge. Thing is, this is too much information for the GPT. It's too much information when it is in PDF format. The PDF takes all of this information and it increases the size. And so we want, so if I were to just if I were to take all of this and do Control A selects all. The document is so big it is now frozen up a little bit. So yep, so I messed that up. So let's click off of that tab. It's going to take it a while before it can respond. And that's the same thing that the GPT would run into, is that it's going to be much slower for it to index through all of that information, sort it, catalog it. And where it becomes a roadblock is when you go to make changes to the GPT. So if I were to go back over here and let's say I had created this, and then I wanted to make some changes right up here, and I want to add some more stuff, right? Add some more bullet points. Let's see. Strategies that are effective within 30 days. So let's say I just want to make that simple change, and then I go to click update. It's going to time out. If this knowledge area is too big, it's going to time out. It's going to have huge issues. So let's check on this tab, see. Yep, so it's selected everything, but anyway, so that's not the way to do things anyway, because the information is just too large in that PDF format. So what I was doing at the same time, and this is also a more effective strategy, is those PDFs were generated from these source codes or this source data, right? And so there's a lot of data here in raw format that identifies aspects of the .NET framework or .NET foundation, right? And so what I did was I took all of this, and you can run a command called git clone, and I cloned it down to my local computer, right? So, you just say git clone blah, 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 HTTP, you could just go over and grab that URL. Actually, you go up here. This is the better way. Just do it like that. And then paste that right in there. And then, in fact, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go back a little bit. Let's just make a directory here. Let's just make a directory called example. Let's go into there. All right. So there's our example directory. And then git clone. Do this in real time. And so it's just bringing down all that information, right? And this is one of the fastest ways to get a large gob of information from a server to a computer. Linus Torvalds, the inventor of Linux, is also the inventor of Git. And then this website, GitHub, was purchased by Microsoft for, I believe, well, I forgot. It's either 7 billion or 75 billion. Anyway, it's one of those. But yeah, so Microsoft bought GitHub, but they did not buy Git. the two technologies are separate. GitHub is a website that streamlines software developers' use of the Git technology. But if you're comfortable working on the command line and working directly, you can work with Git directly. And so Git, of course, can access any repository, including those on GitHub. And Linus Torvalds, who invented Linux and invented Git, created a data transit and tracking system that is used by the majority of developers today and is very effective. So anyway, we got all this data down, right? So this is just a duplicate of what I was showing earlier, right? So let's go ahead and delete that. And so, but you go in and you go through and you see these XML files, right? And you'll notice that it's just faster for us to work with the information locally than to work with it while it's on the internet. So that's why I wanted to get that information, because I knew that once I got it locally, it would be much faster. I could move faster. Because I try to move fast but not break things. So I got that in there. And then my next strategy was, okay, this is an XML format. And over here, we are limited to 20 files. It doesn't matter what the files are. You can only have 20 of them. When I go over here to upload this, upload data, upload files, I can only have 20 of them. But let's say that I have 15 files, right? Let's say I have 15 individual files. And then I have another 8 files that I need to get in there, right? So I got 23 files in total. So I'm well outside my cap. But these 15 files, what if I could take them and make them one file? Wouldn't that be cool? Because these 15 files may be more related to each other than these 8 files are to each other, right? So all these individual files, they all talk about the same thing in different ways and different parts, right? That's what we see over here with all of this data. Is it's all just .NET API. That's the overall topic, the .NET API, the namespaces. So it's like I got these 15 individual files. If I can get them into one file, that's my workaround. And there's a way to do that, right? So when we're in Linux, right, in particular, let's just use this as an example. I'm gonna open up this file. Here's one file, right? Let's see. And here's another file. They're just 2 different files, right? So I'm gonna take this file and I'm gonna merge it with this file, right? So if I just go, okay, CAT, which stands for concatenate, right? CAT. So I want the shorter file first, and then, right? And I just do it like this. I'm gonna just say, let's just say like that, right? Okay, so very simple. So if I open this, look, it's the 2 files together. See? This file, then this file. It's just now one file, right? Didn't destroy the original files. It's just one file. Pretty straightforward, right? But as easy as that was, when you got the files spread across multiple directories, different folders, and all of that, you're not going to sit there and hand type cat that would take like probably 2 or 3 days. And so you need a way to automate that. So then that was my first real task. So my first real task, which is a task for anybody doing GPTs, is you have to automate knowledge acquisition and consolidation. So this here is task number 1, and then this here is task number 2. Those are your 2 high-level tasks. You got to get that knowledge, and you got to acquire it, and you got to consolidate it. But the way to do that is through automation. You got to automate in order to automate. So basically, this whole process is recursive automation. All the software developers in the audience will know what I'm talking about. But this is all recursive automation. And in many ways, this is infinite. This is an infinite process with occasional stops. You can stop, but then there's going to be a requirement in the future in your process where you're going to have to go back into this. So it's a continuous loop, and it continues and it feeds on itself. That's what AI itself is a recursive automation. And then you're recursively automating on top of that in order to narrow it down to what you're trying to get accomplished, right? So it wasn't just this data, but there were many data repositories, right? That's out there. And so, so I got all kinds of code stuff going on anyway, but so I went through different versions. I got version 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't have a version 1 because I already did version 1 last year. I have videos on that. I did that last year. So I knew that what I'm doing now is version 2. And then I started versioning these when I saw that I was going through various iterations. So this is basically what it looks like. You have instructions that you write, and you can ask ChatGPT. You can ask ChatGPT how to build instructions for a custom GPT, and it will tell you. So, and you just follow its guide. And then I had ChatGPT write me a program. I had it write me a program, and this program takes all of that data and it merges it. So it was pretty good. And then what I really wanted to do was get all the .NET namespaces grouped based on type. And I also had gotten documentation for ASP.NET and a variety of other tools that I'm going to use, right? And I got so into this process that I was like, oh, okay, certain things are working well, certain things are not working well. So we go to the next stage, and I had a much more streamlined repository orchestrator designed and developed. So I have my code standards, right? I got technical standards, right, that ChatGPT helped me develop, put voice to what I do and the way that I do things, right? So it's pretty cool. Got this nice tool on Linux called Apostrophe that you can install. You can open markdown formatted stuff, right? And it's pretty good, right? And, some high level stuff, right? And, those are style guides, philosophy, Software developer DNA. What's the DNA of Michael Gaucher when it comes to software development, right? And then you just move on through all of these requirements to get the data the way that you want it for the GPT. And so this repo orchestrator went through different iterations of that. I like what it actually designed, right? It was pretty cool. So pretty cool. The code was very well written. After I went through, as you saw, 4 iterations. And it was on that 4th iteration that I hit my breakthrough moment where I said, oh, I can use ChatGPT in a very specific way and achieve some great results. So, you know, by version 5, I had the formula nailed. But it was able to go through all the directories. And I had achieved that by version 2. I had to write a bash shell script for Linux, which was good, but it wasn't something that you could debug very effectively. So I knew that if I had that same process drafted as a .NET program, then I could get greater granularity, greater detail and control over how the translations occur. And so that worked very well for me. So I got AS style to keep the code formatted, which is good. And these are the scripts that I came up with through ChatGPT. This one's important because these files, a file can be at most 512 megabytes, which is roughly half a gigabyte. But no matter how big that file is, it cannot exceed 2 million tokens. Tokens are not the same as characters. So I needed a script that could evaluate the content and ensure that if it exceeded 2 million tokens, that it would split it off. So take a large file. So we got 15 individual files. That's now one file. But if that one file is 6 million tokens, then that has to be split into 3 files. So it could properly get ingested into ChatGPT, because it will validate that the file meets the token standard, right? Because if it doesn't, it will reject the upload. So you have to go through the logistics of getting that curated just right. So I have tools now and scripts for doing that. That's pretty cool. And you just ask ChatGPT to make your script like that. It's that simple. That's better than having a script that everybody can download and use and share, because as ChatGPT changes, so does the approach to evaluating how many tokens you would have. So it's better to have a living, transformative process than one that is static, right, and brittle. So anyway, so then I came up with this approach of document automation in general. And let's just say that, document conversion. So basically, ChatGPT did a great job of writing this the way I would write it. This is how I would write the program if I was writing it by hand. Pretty smooth, pretty sharp, and it worked flawlessly for the most part. There were some issues, but I was able to write a very well crafted specification and have ChatGPT output it the proper way. Saved me hours, right? And so all I wanted was to take that docx XML format, docfx XML format, and have it output in the right way. So I have the automation in place, but it turns out that much of this I didn't need, and that's fine, because it's going through this process of getting this in place that I learn the most about ChatGPT and working with it, right? So I now have all kinds of documents. I have all kinds of materials, right? And, I have a knowledge base of things that can be done, right? And in the previous video, this was the prompt that I had crafted that broke ChatGPT, and it was like, bam, it just couldn't handle it. And then I had these as my assets that I uploaded, right? And so I have a ton of lessons learned, and the end result is that now I have dozens of AI agents and the know-how in creating them that I can then translate and scale to AI development in general, harnessing and applying AI. I've taken my skills to the next level on that, and I didn't expect that, because that wasn't my priority, that wasn't my focus, but that has been a huge side effect of this process. And so, but I now can have AI create me software programs, and I can see the code. Like if I go back over here, right? Let's hone in on this more. I can have ChatGPT create for me a program that would take me maybe a few hours to write and refine. It can do this for me in less than 4 to 5 minutes. It can do this in 4 to 5 minutes. And it's like, yeah, but see, the thing is, once I take the code out of ChatGPT and I put it on my computer, I am now responsible for what happens with this code. So if it has bugs, if it has glitches, if it has flaws that may not even be apparent in the beginning, then I still need to know how to work with this. I still need to know how to work with this. And when there are flaws, I can take the same code and send it right back to ChatGPT and say, hey, this is what happened. Can we produce another version, another iteration that addresses these issues? And then sure enough, you eventually get to the point where that occurs. And that is still faster than handcrafting this from scratch or trying to maintain a pristine version of this for years as technology evolves and change. And so, and it's going to be able to incorporate things that I may not have thought of despite my experience. So then it becomes an opportunity for me to learn as well, because I know what the program should do, and I have a great idea of how it should look, how the code should look. But then I can see small little details that's like, you know what? I understand what that is, but it's interesting that you would write the code that way. And it was the case that when when this code was written, I changed most of this, right? I changed a good bit of this. It was fine, right? And I needed ChatGPT to add more to this. It saw the changes I made and it kept them. I didn't even ask it to. It was just that my overall instructions in the ChatGPT session was such that it was inclined to keep what I had done, the modifications I made once I made them. And it also saw the wisdom in what I did, because the changes I made, for example, ChatGPT said if file path is equal to null, right? Or If file path length is equal to 0, then throw a new argument exception, file path required. I'm like, you know what? Just do string.isNull or white space. That covers more area in terms of edge cases and things not considered. It's null, its length is 0, its length is not 0, but it's all just spaces for some reason, and that's still not valid, right? It covers all of those. So when it looked at that, it was like, it only took it a split second to be like, yep, that is the better way to do that. So it was just little treatments like that, right? So, but overall, it did 99% of the code that I needed, which saved me a great deal of time. So instead of spending 2 hours writing something like that, right, it was able to do it, the whole process of iteration on that particular source code file took maybe 10, maybe 15 minutes. So it's a huge savings. And that type of savings, that is very motivating, because now you're not slogging through this. You are moving through this, you're maintaining your train of thought, and it's awesome, right? And I'm still flowing. That is vibe coding, but not really, because I'm not vibing, right? But I am flowing, right? So it's flow coding with AI, but it's still done in a structured way. So that is just like a small taste of what is going on with me and AI and how one might apply it. And I just wanted to share a little bit of that. I didn't go into the real detail because, like I said in the previous video, that's a competitive advantage. The real details are not here. The real details is in my secret formulas that are now over here. You'll notice got 29 items versus 10 versus 4, So there's a lot going on. There is a ton of things going on that all work together as an effective tool set to do things more productively with greater leverage and to level up. So that's the reality of AI today. And I just showed you some code. I just showed you some process. And so if nothing else, this is the real world of using generative AI, regardless of your platform. You could do all of this with Google Gemini. You could do all of this with Anthropic, right? Claude. You can do all of this with DeepSeek. Well, okay, you can't do this with DeepSeek on the web, but you can do this with most of the AI platforms that people know about that have a web browser interface and be very successful and build the foundation for future success. And not only build the foundation for future success, but do it in a way that accelerates you towards a brighter future. So this is my level up moment. The month of October 2025, Michael Gaucher, level up. And so you do it by building things. You do it by creating value. You do it by making contributions to the world. And the material success that follows from that is just a side effect in proportion to the amount of value that you have delivered and the amount of craft and attention you put into what you build. Because ultimately, my motivations for all of this is that I have things that I want to craft. I have a future that I want to project. And I started my path in this reality as an artist. And I drew things, I illustrated, I painted. And I have an affinity for craft, for design, for art, for aesthetics. And you want to present that in a functional way, the way you would with architecture, with buildings, with software, so that your art is also valuable in how it helps you and potentially others live a better life. And that's the path, in that it's not enough to just build things. You have to be able to build things, but when you present it to the world, it also needs to be polished and refined. And so I have all the skills, and now I have power tools that can help me move faster and get to that place much sooner in terms of the vision that I have or have had for quite some time. So I hope this has been informative to you and have given you the overall blueprint for how you can use these tools. And it's not just these particular aspects, what you call GPT instructions and knowledge and all of this. This is also the process that you would follow even if you didn't have AI. And what AI has forced me to do is get more structured in how I approach this. So it's not just this purely organic, ad hoc type of thing. But as I use this more, I'm still a master software developer who has now greatly refined his team lead, software engineering manager, senior architect level of skill to be able to produce things with greater rigor, structure, metrics, quality assurance, planning, and insight into edge cases and constraints. So, I said a lot there. If you rewind, if you pause, if you reflect, you'll see that all the elements for success is stated in this discussion. So, until I see you again, I will see you later.